Okay, to make a lining pattern, you'll need your facing patterns. For this video, I will just show you how to do your lining because you don't have to have facing patterns or do a mixture. So if we've got a back pattern piece in several sections, you simplify the lining if possible by overlapping at the sewing line. So you can see here, I've got those overlapped on the sewing line. So I'm just taking the seam allowances off, okay, and joining them together. And then we just either put a pin, take it in a bit here, or you'd add a fish dart at that point. So we're just going to mark the whole back section in one, all your notches, drawing round. Okay, obviously every pattern's different. And this here we can work out that we know there's going to be a dart there. It finishes overlapping around here, so that's where our dart will be. And I'm marking in the finished hemline. So you can see on this pattern in the red, that would be the fusible. So you'd have on your pattern piece fusible on the hem. So when you sew that up, that gives it a nice crisp edge. So this is for a back jacket. And you need your straight grains marked on. Right. So if you have your back neck facing, I can show you quickly. I've got that marked there. Make sure all your lines have come on. Your shoulder. If you've got your back neck facing piece, you need to use that piece to draw on. Now I'll just show you using this pattern how you would make your back neck facing. You just use your measurement. You normally take off your seam allowances and it's about 5-6 centimetres in width. So you can see that to make your back neck facing pattern piece, you would trace off that line there, okay, and then give it a nice line to go round. And that's how you'd make your back neck pattern piece. You would trace that section off and that would be a separate pattern piece. So to put it on your lining, trace round it and then take the seam allowance off. I've got 1 centimetre seam allowance. And then add it back on again. I know that sounds a bit confusing, but you've got your back neck facing that you've just put on and drawn round here. So then you remove it and then this is the sewing line or net, no seam allowance. So then because this is the pattern piece here and that's our net line, we then need to add the seam allowance on top of it. So that's why we've done it that way. And we've got our straight grain marked on. And then we want to add back neck pleat. Let's do it quicker than my tripod. So this is the sewing line here. So this becomes a notch. And then what we want to do is we want to add, I don't think you can quite see that. We want to add add a pleat. So we've got a pleat here. So this bit here will become a pleat. Okay. So we just take that down. Take it down to the bottom. So obviously at this point at the waist, we don't need it to go all the way to the hem, but we take it approximately to the waist. And we know that that comes down. This will be placed on the fold. And this allows movement in the back neck on the cross back here, where when you've got your jacket on you need it. So this will be a notch here, and this point there is put on the fold. Okay, so we're going to have that on the fold line. So you then just cut one. When you cut your pattern out, if you're using 1 centimetre seam allowance, you just need to add a little bit all the way around. If you're using 1.5 centimetre seam allowance, you just need to sew it with 1 centimetre, because you want your lining pattern to be that little bit bigger. So where I've got where it's going to be folded up, so that will be your finished hemline, just lower that about 1/2 centimetre. Okay, and that will give enough for the pleat for it to fold up. So because I've only got 1 centimetre seam allowance, I'm just going to add a little bit more on my pattern all the way round on these 1 centimetre seam allowance edges, just to give it a bit more movement when I cut it out. And that is my back lining piece with my facing taken out and a back pleat added in.